Speaking of the CIO, as we kind of hit our home stretch, the before we close with our fun little piece, the last article here is from a CIO from CIO.com, and it's from another study. This one by Babson College. Now, what's interesting is the headline is talking about how um, the majority of respondents were CDOs, chief data officers, and that they basically said that it's going to be a generation, but in the next generation that there'll be the fundamental business transformation within the enterprise. Okay, fine. I didn't find that particularly um, noteworthy per se, but what I did find interesting is there's sort of this whole subtext about who runs AI, who is the champion of AI in the enterprise. And what's interesting, and maybe not unsurprising given that the primary respondents were chief data officers, but it was you pretty much split down the middle. About half thinks that it's the CIO, and half thinks that it's within the business line of business functions. And I found it interesting on two levels. The first is this has been an ongoing battle. It's like yet another round of people gunning for the CIOs, if not job responsibility and domains. And I'll say the same thing I've said all along, including with chief data officers. If your company is bringing in a chief data officer, a head of AI, any of these functions, it's probably a sign that as a CIO, you are not being viewed strategically enough, and you need to step it up to take that on. The other big thing, though, going back to my nuance question, this would be my hedge on that statement I just made, is that I do think that we need to again stop talking about AI within the enterprise as a single class of product, right? I talked a little bit about the buy versus build spectrum when you're focused on internal productivity versus customer differentiation. I think those are two wildly different things. So if I'm trying to drive competitive differentiation in the market by delivering an AI solution that's going to directly interact with my customers, it actually probably does make sense to have a head of consumer AI or a head of AI focused on those customer facing activities, probably working closely with the CIO who maybe is responsible for providing underlying infrastructure. I think that makes a lot of sense because fundamentally you're delivering a product into the market. It just happens to be a technology based product. But if it's internally consumed and it's focused on the productivity of the employees, I think that that technology is absolutely within the CIO's domain, right? Their job is to deliver technology to the enterprise that helps drive productivity and effectiveness and efficiency, and AI should play an absolute fundamental role in that. And so again, I think we need to, even the question is sort of flawed. Who should run AI? Well, that's not a single answer, right? And I think we need to start breaking this up and looking at it with that nuance.
Right. There's always going to be this business driven capability, the cost of goods sold, where you're going to want a chief revenue officer or somebody in that marketing or sales role to have a real say in what happens from an AI perspective. But the CIO's role is fundamentally around supporting technology at scale because this is super complicated when you're doing it for 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people. That's always going to be the case. I don't see a near future where any sort of technology becomes simple to run over 10,000 or 20,000 people. And so that's a fantastic place for the CIO to show their chops and to show that they learned something in the 21st century and to be able to handle the data and logical challenges associated with AI and to be able to have that network across the executive team to be able to say, I'm going to go to my chief counsel to look at governance issues. I'm going to go to my CFO and see what our publicly reported responsibilities are, and to be able to integrate all of that into a holistic and scalable strategy. That's the CIO job. And if that's not your job as a CIO, you definitely need to rethink what your responsibilities are, or perhaps figure out what your actual job is if you're being labeled as a CIO.
Yep, I think it's a continuing battle, and it's a continuing challenge. I saw another report that I didn't pull in this case because
Mm-hmm.
it just maybe angered me. But how your average executive still has no idea what the CIO and the IT department does or is responsible for. And it's like, how can that really be true? But I think it is. I think at least in certain organizations where it is this sort of continuing battle, you have to continually fight. What I will say, if you're a CIO and you work in an organization like that, this is a big opportunity because AI has so much mind share right now that it's the opportunity to reposition and get yourself into that role and to that sort of mindset within your peers once and for all. So